Fugitive Orchestra. First name James. What a guy, what a musician, what a talent. Tell me, how many of you have been to a gig, to a performance, to a jam session, to anything, and you've heard or you've witnessed a performance from a complete stranger who you've never met before? Yet for those 3 or 4 minutes of that song or that performance, that moment, they've made you feel an emotion, they've made you feel something. They've transported you to a different part of your life, to just a different place. And it's crazy when you think about it and when you break it down, because you don't know that person, you've never met them before in your life. You never heard that song, you've never seen that performance, you've maybe never been to that place. You've gone to a new venue and you've seen and you've witnessed this performance. Yet they've made you feel that way. That is the power of music. Fugitive Orchestra for me brings that. He brings such passion, such a presence in his music, and definitely evokes an emotion for me. Every time I hear him perform, I feel something. I can't wait for you to hear 3 amazing performances from Fugitive Orchestra today during this podcast. What about the person behind this music? So no further ado, my name's Luke Garns, and this is an independent musician. Tap, clap, sing along, but please keep it on beat. Yes, amazing today, guys. We have Fugitive Orchestra here, actually here, in my studio, if you like. The very first podcast that I've had somebody in for, so thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
I first saw you play at the Arches in Southampton, and I was blown away, to be fair. Such a great vibe, and I'm so pleased to have you on the podcast. So,
thank you,
for those people that don't know, just please introduce yourself, tell us a bit about you.
Yeah, thank you. So, my name's James. I make music as Fugitive Orchestra, like an orchestra on the run from the law. I play guitar, I sing, I beatbox, I do a little bit of live percussion, not as good as this guy. And I sort of put it all together with the use of loop pedals, various different effects pedals, and I guess sort of different mic techniques and stuff like that I've rehearsed over the years to kind of create like a one-man band sound, or
Sure.
sort of a fuller sound that is sort of layered melodies and harmonies and percussions and beats and things like that.
Awesome. Yeah, no, great. For me and my girlfriend, when we were listening, the way you layered the sounds up, like you say, start from the ground up, and it's kind of, because for me, like when I'm performing and doing my percussion stuff, it's all about a vibe and bringing kind of an energy to like your performance. And I feel like it does that when you do that kind of loop up, because it starts so sparse. And I always say it when I do like music reactions or anything. I love music that just kind of adds more and just grows and kind of develops. And then before you know it, you kind of strip it back down to just the guitar and your voice, and it starts to go again. So I think that's great. It takes a listener on a journey. It's really dynamic. So, a question I always like to ask people on the podcast is a bit of a philosophical question, really, but what does music and being a musician mean to you?
Nice. So, I mean, a musician I really admire, his name's Joe Henry, and he's a music producer as well as a songwriter, and he says, the whole gig is just about making something meaningful come out of a pair of speakers. And that's always really resonated with me. And I think being a musician, kind of following on from that point a little bit, being a musician is just sort of about listening better, really, and sort of responding better to things. And you could go way out from that and say, you could apply that philosophy to your life and things like that as well. I mean, I try and listen to music and think, what can I learn from this, rather than just, do I like this? A lot of the time I'm just like, no, I don't like this. But more often than not, I find myself actually really drawn into genres of music that I, when I was like a know-it-all teenager, would have been like, nah, this isn't for me. No, that's. I think it is kind of about listening better and sort of finding meaning in things.
For sure. No, that's amazing. I always think people are really interested to know. Like they come to the gigs, they see you play, but they're really. I don't think people always know, and understand what it just means to you as a musician.
Sure.
You know, to like do this, like it's deep rooted, isn't it? You know, it really it goes far beyond just like being in front of a crowd and just having fun or putting on a performance. It really means something, and I think everyone has their own story and their own journey behind that.
Definitely.
So, yeah.
I think if there wasn't really that much behind it, you maybe would struggle to find the confidence to perform. You sort of potentially drawing from something quite deep. I'm not saying every gig is sort of a spiritual journey, but at the same time, you can't really discredit everything that's happened in your life when you come to do a performance. Maybe it's affecting you and informing you in all these different ways that you don't fully understand.
100%, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And like, you know, I was talking to previous guests on the podcast and friends about this recently, and saying about how when you perform, and when I perform as well, you really feel like you're giving something. And even me, like I stand there, like if I'm doing a club gig, behind the bongos, you know, people just think, oh, it's just. But I'm really kind of trying to give something out and trying to make people feel a certain way. You know, whether that's happiness, you know. Joy, you know, just a vibe, just like euphoric, you know, just close your eyes and just, you know, you really want to kind of tap into that. And I feel like with your music and what you do, genuinely, you really do that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. So how did you first get into music, and what is your inspiration for starting?
Awesome. Yeah. So I've kind of been, I guess, sort of low-key obsessed with music since I was like 8 or something like that. I was always kind of a fairly noisy child. And I think it was maybe around about that time, so hearing songs on the radio, hearing the music that my parents were listening to, and actually being like, yes, my parents aren't cool, but some of this music is actually kind of amazing. Like Eva Cassidy and Joni Mitchell. And then I think I was 8 or 9 and my dad showed me how to work his record player.
Yeah.
And he was like, here's a record by Stevie Wonder. I think you'll like it. And it was either the Talking Book album or the Music of My Mind album. I think the second of the two. I just played that so many times. So I think Stevie Wonder is properly my first musical love, really. And then when I was about 9, because my dad played guitar a bit, he doesn't really play it anymore. Still has a guitar in the house though, which I appreciate, especially when I come to visit. When I was about 9, they got me a little classical guitar, the kind of 3/4 size one that kids get when they learn because of their tiny little hands. And I started with lessons with that, and I really wasn't taken to it. Probably my hands weren't big enough to get around the neck of the guitar. I didn't really respond that well with the teacher. And we went from like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star to Wonderwall, and it just felt like one day we were doing melodies and the next we were doing chords and harmonies and stuff. And so sadly it sat back in its case for like 2 and a bit years.
Wow.
And then one day I was sort of 11 or 12, and I just, one random Sunday afternoon, I just thought, oh, I'm a bit bored. There's something in there. I'll just root around in the bedroom, and ended up looking through these chord charts and mangled my hands, which probably by then were a little bit bigger and a bit more dexterous, into playing some chords. And I was just like, this can work. Like this, there's something here. And so spent the rest of the afternoon, sadly, probably strumming Wonderwall actually, but anyway,
brilliant.
And that was kind of the start of what's been several decades long musical obsession, really. Just sort of getting lost in sounds and harmonies and rhythms and stuff like that. That's
awesome. And I can definitely resonate with that as well, that whole upbringing and the parents playing music. Sure. You were saying about your dad, playing Stevie Wonder, and you mentioned Eva Cassidy as well.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love both of those. Like when I was younger, I remember my mum constantly playing Stevie Wonder, Ray Charles, and Michael Jackson in the house. Great. And for me, that was my introduction to just thinking about music, and goes back to what you said at
Yeah.
the beginning as well. And that's why I thought that was such an amazing answer to that question. I say it again, but just the way that you think differently about music and the meaning behind it. And I was listening to Michael Jackson from a young age, and Stevie Wonder, thinking, wow, there's a sound there, and then there's a sound there.
Yes.
And and then like googling panning and just trying to figure out what panning was, and how he was going about this, and how he was creating this kind of like, I felt like I was there.
Yeah.
You know. And this musical interest coming up constantly, and then Ray Charles just with the amazing tone of his voice and the way that his voice makes you feel a certain way.
Definitely.
And all these things just kind of make you think about music differently. And wow, this isn't just a song. This is like this is a journey. You know, this is and obviously you felt that as well from a younger age, which is now fed into your music today.
Sure, and it's interesting that you can touch upon like production elements, because in a way it's a shame, because I didn't really think about that for far too long. I think I was probably like 15 or 16 in a band, and we were kind of trying to figure out studio stuff. We had a few recording sessions here and there in kind of middling recording studios. One of them was kind of nice, and I had a horrible moment of hearing my recorded voice for the first time. That's a moment I'll never forget. It wasn't very comfortable. But yeah, so it was ages till I developed the vocabulary to kind of, as you're saying, describe some of the techniques that these people were using to capture these feelings, basically. You know, like on Living for the City, to go back to Stevie Wonder, you know, it's a super long song and it's just an amazing jam from start to finish, but like there's all the things that he was doing with production, and he was like feeding New York City sounds in, and it was coming through the left speaker, and then there's a voice coming from the right.
Yeah.
I understood what it sounded like, but I didn't really understand any of the techniques that they would have used to capture that, or even, you know, if I wanted to try and impersonate that as like a little kid with Audacity or whatever, which was, again, a bit of a nightmare of an experience. That was a really nice lesson in how little I learned, how little I knew about recording music.
Good old classic Audacity.
Yes, with my like £8.50 USB microphone with a diaphragm about that size, about 5p diaphragm. Didn't work.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so that's it. It's all just kind of feeds into one thing. It's about you've got to have the meaning, but if you don't have some technique and some knowledge of, like, I guess the science of it all, really.
Absolutely.
You're going to end up with 14-year-old James's Audacity mixes, I guess.
We'll see if we can fish out some of that, but no, it's okay. We're sparing.
It's buried in the vault.
It's buried, yeah. Never to be seen again.
Change the locks as well.
But no, and those things you talk about there, I definitely hear in your music, and it's what I always listen out for in all music as well, because it's like just little certain things, like when you're playing the guitar, for instance, and you might just like hit hard strum on the just to add the sort of like element, and then it's the same thing when I'm playing the percussion as well, and I might do like a cymbal choke, and those things there, and I know you do that through your music, and we're going to hear some of that, shortly, and I'll put links as well in the description to all your stuff on Spotify that people can check out. But you do that as well, where you just bring things down, add things in, and it just really adds that impact, dynamics, lighting, shade to the performance. So, how has your musical inspiration changed over the years, or has it? Has it even changed?
Yeah. I definitely think so. I mean, as a teenager, it was very much like a pretty strict diet of like indie rock music, and definitely a little bit of sort of Motown and some of the kind of classic folk records that my parents were sort of had brought me upon as well. Yeah. But it didn't really stray much from that, and some of that has carried through. Like I love Radiohead's music. They were my first gig, and I just think they're them as sort of trailblazers and not staying still and not they, you know, from album to album, there's just this amazing progression. So they're definitely entrenched in my kind of musical landscape or whatever, DNA. And I think more recently, I say more recently, but arguably since I was about 16, which sometimes feels recent, sometimes it doesn't.
You're younger than me.
You know, at about 16, I got really into jazz. At a similar time, hip-hop as well. And just realising just how much overlap and how much the two kind of feed into each other was just a really eye-opening thing. And I think that's kind of like, first of all, oh my God, these two genres are so rich. There's like an ocean to be explored, and I'm not sure I'll have the time in my life, but kind of chuck myself in anyway. And I think that realising that you could be in a genre but also referencing all these other genres and sort of, or maybe you're in between these genres and you don't really fit anywhere, was a big thing for me as well. So, you know, passing my driving test and just playing Illmatic a lot. And hearing A Love Supreme for the first time at the same age was, really, really, really important. And I guess in a way it has changed influence-wise. But in some ways, and I guess this ties back to Radiohead, in some ways that there are a lot of like guiding stars, if you like, for me, influence-wise. And they are like the people who don't really fit into any one place. Joni Mitchell is a huge one for me. Jeff Buckley, John Coltrane, Miles Davis, and then sort of other just wonderful oddball people and bands. Tom Waits is a huge one as well. Recently, I adore this band. They're from Norway. They're called Pom Poko. I saw them at the Wedgwood Rooms last week. They just make wonderfully noisy, mathy punk rock, but they have a jazz background, so that kind of ties in as well. And you can tell that they like Can and other crowd rock bands and stuff like that. So I don't really know exactly what it is that resonates with me musically, but I think sort of feeling and rhythm and little hints at what people's influences are as well. Being able to trace a little bit of their musical journey, but at the same time, it's like, oh my God, they are so unique, kind of thing. So, so I think I'm more open-minded than I used to be. I'm a lot less of a music snob, which is, and I'm still a bit of a music snob, but, I'm better than I was. I'm more open-minded for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. And just going back, you touched upon there about some music taking you back to certain points in your life as well.
And
that's the beauty of music, isn't it?
Definitely.
You know, I mean, you hear a song and it's like, gosh, I'm 16 again. You know, in the car on the way to, I don't know, my first, whatever it might be, you know, football match. It just takes you back to a moment in your life, you know, or whether that be a happy moment, a sad moment. And that's the beauty of music. It transcends to different emotions.
Definitely.
Touching on what you said about like the different genres coming together, what do you think about like when you're creating music? Do you think about boundaries and what should go together and what shouldn't, or are you just like, nah, that just feels good?
Nice. Okay. Sometimes yes, but more often than not, no. I think so. Going back a good couple of years when I was writing songs, I think I would maybe deliberately, let's say we're in a particular key, I would deliberately go to a chord or a key change that was actually a bit uncomfortable. Whereas I think I'd like to be a little bit more subtle about those sorts of things, if that makes sense. So that's not to say I'm more aware of the rules than I was, the rules, but you know, the kind of what feels right and what might sound right to the average listener, if I may try not to patronise the listeners. I'm not saying that. But, you know, I guess sort of like Western music theory and things like that, we have some things just feel really unusual, like microtones just don't really sound right to a Western ear.
Yeah.
Things like that. So I guess I'm cognizant of the way that things ought to be according to some people, but I'm also keen to explore ways that maybe we can just tweak that a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And I think what you say there, it's brilliant because it comes with musical maturity as well as a musician.
Yeah.
You know, as a musician, not only are you thinking about, of course, the listener and you know, but then you don't want to go down the route of just being too like generic. You know, full. You want to add a little bit of yourself in there and a little something different. But as you grow as a musician and you have over the years, you are more aware of when to put it there.
Yes.
So I just give someone, and then they're going to have that moment, and I love it when you see people when they're at a live gig, and that moment like, ooh. You know, that moment like, ooh, what's there? Where's it gone there? You know, and that's
brilliant.
And it's just about, and like you say, that comes with kind of, as a musician, that understanding of just when to put in there and taking that listen on the journey, and then you go back to the comfort again, and then like, God, they can sit back into it. Yeah. They can just maybe like close their eyes and just bob along, and then they get that moment again, and like it perks them up, you know. You know, so I think that's great. I think just following on from that, I think it'd be great to get a little performance from yourself. So what track is it you're gonna play for us? Right. Firstly,
we will start with this song's called Bread and Butter. I finished it in 2020. And I was very lucky during lockdowns, various and pandemic and stuff. I lived with my partner, who's now my wife. I said that in a weird way. She's now my wife. But she is now my wife.
Yeah, you said that in a very proud way.
Yeah, thank you. Yes. Yeah, I am happy about that, I promise.
Yes.
And, you know, was able to be fairly close, more often than not physically, but also sort of in terms of connection-wise, to lots of people I care about, lots of friends, lots of family, etc. I'm fully aware that that was not the case for lots and lots of people.
Yeah.
And so I guess the song is about just staying focused on the fact that it won't be too much longer till we're back with the people that we love, and sort of staying strong until that moment.
Brilliant.
And the title comes from one of my favourite TV shows growing up, Monk. There's a bread and butter reference in it.
So yes, this is Bread and Butter by Fugitive Orchestra. Take it away.
Thank you, Ben.
I was checking the flight path for our rendezvous. I was counting the lampposts between me and you. If time is a rumor that we all believe in, then we might as well be trapped in a burning building. And the night comes and the world falls asleep, but the breadcrumbs don't lead you to me. Time is a rhythm that lives in between my window pane. Could you be the bread and butter and hold all the pieces of my name? If we ever stop pretending that life is never ending, things will never be the same. Could you be the bread and butter and hold me together till I see you again? My head is a box of secrets, somehow you unlatched me. I'd climb on the trapeze, since I know that you catch me. I'm in free fall. So much I don't understand. feel like I've been falling since I let go of your hand. And the night comes and the world falls asleep, and the breadcrumbs don't lead you to me. Time is a rhythm that lives in between my window pane. Could you be the bread and butter and hold all the pieces of my name? If we ever stop pretending that life is never ending, things will never be the same. Could you be the bread and butter and hold me together till I see you again? I'm lost without you. I'm lost. I'm lost without you. Lost. Time is a rhythm that lives in between my window pane. Could you be the bread and butter and hold all the pieces of my name? If we ever stop pretending that life is never ending, things will never be the same. Could you be the bread and butter and hold me together till I see you again? Could you be the bread and butter and hold me together till I see you again?
Going back to you talk about your musical influences.
Yeah.
In the performance there, moments when you had the palm muting
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
verse, and then the pre-chorus
Yeah.
comes in and it starts to lift a little bit,
Mm.
and then the chorus is slightly completely different rhythm almost.
Yeah,
You know? And then it comes back down again, and then
Nice.
the bridge, not the bridge, was it the bridge? It was the bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, where it was kind of more of a build.
Yes,
And then back
yeah,
into
yeah.
the chorus
Yeah.
again. In terms of your songwriting and when you structure your songs, how do you go about that?
Yeah, I suppose I a lot of the time I sometimes just fall back on standard songwriting structure.
ABA.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then other times it might just be like, no, it feels right to have something else here, or
Yeah.
I'm working on something at the minute for a really interesting songwriting contest that I've been a part of for years with the Coffee Music Project. I decided I was going to start it with a chorus and that sort of thing.
Cool.
It just felt right for the song, and there's a little intro and da 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 da. So sometimes I think a lot of the time it just feels like there's an energy to a song. I almost like to think of it in terms of a pull, like songs have a bit of a gravity to them, in that this section pulls, it wants to go into a chorus, or this chord ending needs to pull into a verse, or we need something here to let people catch their breath, or
sure.
So we whack a pre-chorus in, or we want even more of a build, So it generally is kind of a sort of case by case basis.
Yeah.
But sometimes I'll definitely go into a project, be like, I'm gonna write a really cool pre-chorus for this.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a really good build to a chorus. And that sort of thing. It doesn't always pay off, but
no. Yeah, but I think that's the beauty of music, being able to experiment and express yourself however you want to, and the title of this podcast being Independent Musician. That's another great thing about being an independent musician.
Exactly.
But you have complete control over that.
Yeah.
Rather than saying to you, no, we need this here, we need that there, because that's what's going to sound. It's like I feel like as an independent, you can just give more of yourself,
I think,
rather than being kind of told you have to be a certain way or sound a certain way, even look a certain way. know. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about, of course, the pandemic. It'd be a shame not to. I say it's a shame not to, but it would be ill-fitting not to.
I
You know,
totally see what you
after
mean.
the time we've been.
Totally see what you mean.
So yeah, how did you find being an independent musician through the pandemic?
Yeah.
And what did you do to stay kind of like motivated and present during that time?
Sure. I guess it was challenging and rewarding in very different aspects and sort of different areas of life and day-to-day living and work and stuff. So my 9 to 5, or it's not, well, first of all, it's not a 9 to 5. My work has been music for quite a few years now. So I became a self-employed musician in 2017. Worked a couple of part-time jobs, but at the beginning of 2019, that's when I was fully just doing gigs.
Awesome.
All kinds of gigs, from parties to weddings and everything in between, festivals, writing for people, writing music and blah, blah, blah. So the fact that a lot of that just kind of dried up was financially very tough.
Yes.
But what I was able to do in terms of little bits of freelancing here and there did give me just this massive chunk of time. And I just threw myself into practicing guitar, basically practicing my songwriting and taking risks sort of musical risks and things like that, not climbing scaffolding. And, you know, so I started live streaming. I started twice a week, and then it built to 3 times a week. And one of those was an hour and a bit of just improvising music and trying to come up with lyrics. And it almost became like accidental songwriting kind of thing. So some of the ideas, in fact, the next song I'm going to play came out of one of those improvising sessions. And every now and again, there would just be this feeling that, like, there's really something here.
Yes.
You know, there's a worthwhile idea that I need to just like save this recording at the end of this and come back to this with a notepad and a guitar and pick it apart and put it back together in a more kind of constructed, controlled way. And yeah, just writing all kinds of different music for sort of different purposes as well, because kind of out of that began this really rewarding working relationship with a chap that I'm now in a band with. He's an amazing musician, producer, rapper, writer, and
like a quadruple threat. You just do it all this
yes,
guy.
oh man, absolutely. Where's bucket hats? So through him and some of his contacts, we got into some sync libraries and things like that. So I was writing music that were sort of pitching to TV and film and adverts. And whoever wants it, you can have it. Awesome. The music, get it, pay me, great. So you know, it was then kind of like, right, well, let's put some rules back on this songwriting project, because we want someone to maybe pick this up for TV, in which case maybe we want to make some of these themes that are kind of present in the song a little bit more explicit, whereas if I was writing it for me, I'd maybe want to leave a bit open-ended for the listener, whereas if you're writing for quite a specific purpose, you kind of want the themes to be very much on the surface, because it's like, you should feel angry in this scene because Daredevil is kicking the bad guys' asses, so we're going to have angry lyrics and distorted guitars and things like that. And nothing's very subtle about this. And so it was really interesting to sort of experiment with different ways of musical expression and I guess also interact with audiences in a very different way. Yeah. Reading web chat and finding a personal connection there was really rewarding as well. So I think the fact that I've gone on about to such an extent about how rewarding lockdown and pandemic has made a lot of aspects of my working life. Arguably, I got over the financial drawbacks quite quickly. I mean, none of us were going out anywhere, so we weren't exactly spending money on dinners out. So we kind of got through it okay.
Rent food
and scrapes covering them and everything else. I just wanted to spend the rest of my time working on music and hanging out with my partner and going on a walk now and again, seeing the sea, and we were kind of happy with that.
I love that because it's turning a very negative experience for many of us, for all of us. I think in some ways, lockdown and pandemic has had a negative impact on people, and turn that into a positive. And that's amazing to hear, because for me, like, I'm all about positivity and those who listen to the podcast and all that stuff. For myself, will see that, and I love that you kind of put that positive spin on that.
Took some adjustment.
It's not easy, is it?
It took some adjustment. Oh my god. But
we all had those moments when, like, especially when the financial burden is there, because I think it's great that you mentioned that this is your full-time job as well, because I think a lot of people, when they think of us musicians out there performing, they think, hobby to them. It's fun. And we get that. You've experienced that, I'm sure, many times over the years. And it's like, well, no, this is our passion. This is our job. This is our career. And I think it's great for people to know that. And what was it for you that kind of? Because I feel like there's a moment for everyone. I'll briefly touch upon mine after you've gone. But a moment when you think, oh no, I'm going to go fully music. I'm not going to conform to the day job.
Sure. So I did 4 years of uni. I started in Portsmouth in 2010. Did the undergrad. Stayed on for a master's for a year.
Wow.
Absolutely loved it. I did English Lit, so it wasn't necessarily like music was the obvious career trajectory from there. But kind of halfway through the masters, I was like, just constantly longingly looking at my guitar and sort of, sat on my keyboard or sat with a book, and I was guitar. And I think music has been such a passion for so long that I knew it was something I was always going to do in some shape or form, and that's a big reason why I didn't want to do it at uni, because it was like, without, I'm not saying this in like a bigging myself away, but like the music is it's never going to go out as a passion. The fire is going to go out. It's in me, man.
For sure.
So I guess there was that, and so doing gigs around, and sort of, as a musician, you build up this repertoire of covers that you love playing and musicians that you admire, so you learn how to play their songs. So I've done quite a few gigs like that, and it just sort of built and built and built. So I registered as self-employed at the beginning of 2017. That was quite a fantastic first year, really, from January to December. I kind of built on it from there. And then, was it 2018 or was it 2019? I think it was the beginning of 2019 that the restaurant I was working in part-time sadly closed down. So I was then in the position, and I'd been having this conversation with my wife, that it was like, she'd been saying, James, you could totally do this full-time. Like,
amazing.
You are in this position where you're potentially having to turn down gigs because it's a restaurant. They are busiest at the weekends. They want you to work the weekends, and you want to gig on the weekends. So you've got this pull in two different directions. Why don't you just quit and work harder on the music? Then the restaurant closed, and I was like, right, here we go. So it was sort of accidental in that it wasn't fully my decision, but I was coming round to that decision already. And I feel very grateful that life gave me a really good nudge in that sense. Not everyone is lucky enough to have a nudge, and potentially we could just sort of keep ploughing that same furrow without taking the leap of faith almost.
Sure.
So what was your...
Yeah, no. It's interesting hearing you talk about that because we've got so many similarities.
Oh, cool. All right.
Going back,
yes.
like I started doing music back when I was at school.
Nice.
You
nice.
know, and then I left school, secondary school, and I was offered a spot at music college or a catering college, and I actually chose catering.
Yes.
And it's similarly because what you said about I won't do music because music's a passion.
Yeah.
It's gonna come around.
Yeah.
And literally every day whilst I was at catering college, and I enjoyed catering. I enjoyed learning how to cook and all that, and I wanted to get into the trade.
Brilliant.
But every day at lunchtimes I'd be in the music school in East Street.
Okay.
On East Street, playing the drums, and we'd have little jams and stuff like that. And I'd go back to college. And then as the years went on, I thought same way. The drums are just like, there they are. They are. I need to get back on those.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to go back to college and do music. So I went back to college in my early 20s, did music, went into uni.
Yeah.
And then I was still working, just like other little jobs alongside it.
Yeah.
And for me, the big thing which took me into just doing music was actually a health problem.
Right.
I was diagnosed with chronic kidney disease.
Right.
And as the years went on, the kidney started to deteriorate, and then I had to go on to dialysis, which I'm now on. And then what with that, I couldn't then work a daytime job anyway. And I thought, I've got my passion here for music anyway, and I'm just gonna do music, because I've got to do my dialysis during the day.
Right.
In the evening, I'm gonna do my gigs. Whilst I'm doing my dialysis, I'm gonna work towards getting more gigs. Bettering myself, thinking about my music and what I can do. And it's kind of just fell into place from there, really. And even when I was at university doing music, I just wanted to get out there and play. It was like, this is okay, it's getting me a qualification. Yeah. But in my third year of uni, I had a great opportunity to go to London and perform with Matt Henry and work with Mr. Hudson, do stuff like that. And it just kind of, for me, it was like, this is what I want to do. I don't really want to study music. I don't really want to have a daytime job.
Let me do it now.
Play. I just want to do it. And it kind of just fell into place from there, really. I feel like I spoke about myself far too much.
Not at all. No, that's amazing.
What you want to guess, but it's just interesting how those similarities are there.
That's amazing. Yeah. And it is interesting. Sort of golden age thinking, I think, can be a bit dangerous. But in a way, I sometimes think it's a little bit of a shame that the music industry of bygone era, 70s or whatever, if you were a successful musician, that's kind of all you needed to worry about, making and performing great music. Whereas these days, you need to be so agile in terms of thinking about your marketing and your brand and all these other concerns, and presumably managing your revenue streams and all these things. And I'm not trying to say that we have it worse, because in so many ways being more savvy about those things is a massive benefit.
Sure.
But it doesn't quiet the voice in your head of the pull of the drums or the pull of the guitar, when you're doing your own taxes or
absolutely
doing the admin and things like that. So it's interesting to sort of compare the life of Joni Mitchell when she was an up-and-coming musician to the up-and-coming musician of today or whatever.
Indeed, and it is so tricky. And I tell you one thing it does for me, definitely made me feel about just working for myself. That I just liked, because as soon as you get another daytime job, you get that situation that you had back at the restaurant, when they want you to do a shift here. I've got a gig here. And it's that, and I had the same thing when I was working for a coaching company, and Friday night we had the development centre. It's like, I've got a gig, and I can't make it, and like that, and I just want to gig, So now I'm kind of like, music's my main thing, and anything else I do, I just try and. That wise for me anyway is whether it's the podcast, whether it's the YouTube, whether it's my little sweet business I've got going on.
Brilliant.
It can all just work around that. So as soon as the gig comes up, the gig's the one, And I think that's it's not easy. We make it sound like it's. People say you're living the dream. People say, what do you do? I'm like, I'm a musician, and I go, that's great. Get to do something like that. You probably earn a lot more money than me. We've got a lot more security than me. But it's the benefits of that, just being able to do what you love every day. So just closing up on the pandemic thing. What differences have you seen at gigs between coming back?
Sure.
Steve Lois's response to that was very simply less people, which I thought was a great answer.
Very Steve. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I was probably going to lead with people are still quite apprehensive. Like there's definitely a bit of trepidation with people going back and out to things, whether it's restaurants, bars, pubs, events and stuff. But I think the people that are keen to go are like freaking ardent music fans, and or they're almost like they've just reached civilization after hiking through a desert kind of thing. They're like, oh my god, live entertainment kind of thing.
Yeah.
And oh man, it's been so worthwhile performing for those kinds of people. And I know that the slightly more anxious might be.
Yeah.
And do you know what? I'm not even fully sure that there are that many people who would go but are too anxious to go anymore.
Okay.
I just think potentially the pandemic has taught us that, one, there's a lot of entertainment that can be had from one's own home, for better or worse. And two, you know, we've also spent loads of time doing DIY and doing up our own homes. So instead of like, oh, I really want a new car, it's like, I want a new carpet.
Brilliant.
Or, you know, so I think there's a little bit of everything playing into it. But yeah, people have missed live music. And I think some people are surprised by how much they've missed it, which is to say, you know, they've been dragged along to the gig and then the gig has happened. They're like, wow, why have I not been to one of these sooner? Kind of thing, which is so nice to see, and you can feel it in the room as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is awesome.
Sorry
for the pun.
No, that's fine. That's brilliant. Love that. But and the live gigs I've been to since lockdown, you can feel this different energy. You're right. And people like you know, I think we took a lot of things for granted before lockdown. You know, just in general. You know, because it was always there, readily available. You want to go out to a gig, you can.
Yeah.
You want to go out for, you know, a 5-hour walk, you can. And then suddenly 30 minutes a day.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
No gigs.
Yeah.
No shops were open. You know, none of this, you know. So I think we took a lot for granted, and then now it's come back, and everyone's just enjoying it all that much more. So yeah, that's amazing. But I think what we'd love to do is hear another song from yourself, and then we're gonna finish up talking just a bit more about you, because we spoke so much about music. I feel like I want to talk just a bit more about you. But this next track you're gonna sing for us. What's that?
Yeah. So this is one that was just like a total kind of thought experiment on a live stream where I was improvising music.
Yeah.
It was a little chord sequence that I kind of had knocking around in the back of my head, under my fingers, kind of thing. I sort of tweaked it a little bit and was like, that's what that chord should be. What's what the next chord should be, and then played that a few more times, looped it, and then words kind of came from somewhere. It's a bit of a slower, sadder, more perspective song, I guess. So it doesn't really express something that I was feeling at the time, but is very much relatable to people and probably me on some level at some point in my life.
Yeah.
I think so. It's kind of like what we were saying earlier. You bring your whole experience to your songs and your. So I guess that's what.
Definitely. Awesome.
Train of thought is leaving the station. Destination unknown. with barely light enough to grow. Our time will come while we're still young, but in life there are no guarantees. And I'm on my knees since this heartbreak, you've forgotten how to feel. You're still looking backwards, wondering what's real. And you say that the show must go on, though the wheels have all come off. You're pretending nothing's wrong. Nothing's wrong. Reached your conclusion, taking down all your illusions. I see myself reflected in your eyes. Time has all but forgot the lessons we were taught. Should we sit and wait for September skies? Planted the seeds are among the weeds with barely light enough to grow. Our time will come while we're still young, but in life there are no guarantees. And I'm on my knees since this heartbreak, you've forgotten how to feel. You're still looking backwards, wondering what's real. And you say that the show must go on, though the wheels have all come off. You're pretending nothing's wrong. And we say that the show must go on, though the wheels have all come off. We're pretending nothing's wrong. Nothing's wrong.
Wow. So that was Nothing Wrong, Fugitive Orchestra. That was beautiful.
Thank you, man.
Honestly,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm not just saying that. I hope other people have felt it or it's come across through the podcast or video or audio or whatever.
Thank you.
In the same way. But for me, like, I just love music. I absolutely love music, and that just hearing performances like that, and the way you sing, and the way you perform, and the way you play, it just inspires me to play more music.
That means a
you
lot.
know.
Thank you so
honestly,
much.
it just
Thanks, man.
it makes me feel, and I've coined this phrase very few times, or said this before very few times, but it makes me feel proud to be in music.
Nice.
Just to hear,
Nice. Thank you.
hear like how good that is, and this is coming from, believe it or not, guys, an independent musician. You know, I mean, just decided to do it on your own, go out and do your own thing, and so much talent. Honestly, that was incredible.
Thank you.
So I think it's a great for us to move on from that, just to talk just a bit about you. We spoke something about music influences, all of that, songwriting. I feel like we've covered a lot, but like, apart from music, what's that makes you tick? Your hobbies,
Yeah.
family life, and
Sure.
you want to talk about?
Yeah, so I mean, arguably music is the most interesting thing about me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I got married last year, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
We have a little one called Finnegan. He's 1 at the end of this month, on the 28th of Feb. And that's been a wild and wonderful journey.
Yeah.
He's a very happy little person and responds quite wonderfully to music and stuff, which is
Awesome.
really amazing. He's always grabbing at my guitars and things like that.
Yeah.
So starting young and all that.
I saw one of your Instagram posts
Yeah.
the other day.
Yeah.
With him grabbing at one of your guitars,
Yes.
which was amazing. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm trying to get him to sort of speak on cue into a microphone so that I can hopefully work on looping his vocals and stuff.
Okay.
I've had a couple of successful experiments in that.
Nice.
And I guess hobbies besides music would just be sort of fairly run of the mill ones. I quite like an occasional run.
Yeah.
Quite like a video game now and again. Love a movie. Hanging out with friends and reading books very rarely.
Yeah.
I do. I love books. I just don't. I'm not very good at reading them because I don't sit still for very long.
Yeah.
Yeah, sort of. I don't clock watch in many aspects of my life, but I sit down for a book and I'll be like, I've been at this 15 minutes. How many pages have I got? I've not even pages. Oh, I guess I'll just wrap this up as soon as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm very similar when it comes to books.
Yeah.
In terms of like, I love the idea of reading a book.
Yes.
And I enjoy it whilst reading it, but I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm getting older. But I'm just very conscious of time now. What about you?
Yes.
And with yourself as well, married life and all this thing. I'm just like, even with friends with me, let's go play pool. We're playing pool for an hour. And then after an hour, I'm just like...
It's about my quota now.
Time's ticking, I've got other stuff I need to get done today,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's an age thing or what, but I'm just very conscious of time. When it comes to reading, that definitely falls in for me.
Yeah. I guess, I don't quite remember this time in my life, but I must have thought this way, that you just think, time is this infinite resource that you just have an endless amount of, and you can totally play that video game for 4+ hours, hang out with friends, get all the homework done, and still be back in time for dinner.
Yeah.
And all these sorts of things.
Sure.
It's sort of like living in that fantasy while you're a kid is arguably part of being a kid, and it's kind of harmless. But I think, you sort of
you soon
trying to make that work as an adult.
It's tough.
I have to use the quotation marks for myself because I'm not really an adult.
Absolutely, yeah. Forever young.
Yeah.
Forever young, yeah.
My birth certificate says I'm an adult, but that's fine.
I am certain my birth certificate is wrong. I'm certain there's a mistake there.
Yeah.
I mean, somehow, guys, I know you're probably looking thinking, no way, Luke, you can't possibly be that age. Somehow I'm 34.
Yeah.
I mean, it must just be a cream I use. I'm not sure what it is. But I can't possibly be 34. There's a mistake on my birth certificate. I keep talking to my mom about it, but she says, no, it's right. I guess it is what it is. Yeah. But yeah, no. You're right. We're not getting any younger.
31 this year.
31 this year.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. How did you find turning 30? Went back when you did.
Yeah. Okay, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I didn't feel a big shift.
No.
I think maybe the pandemic changed as well.
Yes.
There was a bit of that. I do remember looking at some friends who were a little bit older that I worked with when I worked in restaurant and stuff, and they were sort of early 30s, and thinking there's like kind of no difference in the way that we act or the way that we socialise or sort of in our working life balance or any of these things, and yet I'm 27 or whatever age I was, 31.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And now, kind of,
Now
that was a bit of a silly mindset, really. And yeah, I was there. And I think as I kind of got closer and closer and closer to like the very limit of being able to call myself in my late 20s, it's kind of like, yeah, it's just a year, isn't it? Fine. So, yeah, so it was just like another little tick over the on the odometer kind of thing.
Indeed, yeah. I think, you know, it's all just a matter of mindset, isn't it, Rich?
Big time.
You know, you can worry about so much in life, but ultimately we're going to get older. You know, it's how we get older we do with that time. You know, so yeah, that's the most important thing. But I'm gonna ask you a question now, which you know I hope you're comfortable with. But it's for me. I spoke about it earlier with my dad and stuff, and I've experienced quite a lot of like, you know, tough times over the years, and bouncing back from that, I think it's just all part of the beauty and the journey of life. You know, you know, and how you deal with those that come out the other end. Can you, you know, and please go as far into it or not, but have you experienced anything over the years that's kind of heartache or sadness, which has shaped you as a person now and maybe fed into your music?
Yeah, I mean, I can think of a couple of instances, but probably the one that hits home the most, not least because I've been reminded of it a few times the last few years, was about 6 years ago. My dad's a keen cyclist. He cycles to work most days. He was knocked off his bike and had quite a severe head injury. And the part of the brain that got damaged was the speech and language part, as well as the part that kind of connects faces and people and stuff. So he wasn't actually sure who my mum was for a little while.
Okay.
And it was kind of a difficult time. It must be longer than 7 years ago because I was coming to the end of my masters. I had some exams and some really tough hands. And so I remember my mate had a fire escape in our flat, and I was sat in his fire escape reading a book for this piece of coursework, and I got the phone call from him telling me about the accident. And I spoke to him on the phone, and I could tell that he didn't know who he was talking to on the phone. And so, sort of, to cut a long story short, he went through lots of therapy, and he is like completely. It's an amazing recovery. Thankfully, he was a healthy guy, still is a healthy guy. And the doctors just say, you know, thankfully, because of you being in good health, you made such an amazing recovery. And I think about that because his working life, he's a jeweler. He makes and repairs jewellery and has done since he was 18.
Okay.
And so he made our wedding rings.
Wow.
And so I was just thinking about that when we tied the knot, my wife and I was just thinking, you know, some time ago he wasn't really able to even identify his family members, and I'm now wearing something that I will wear for the rest of my life that my dad made. So I think it's really taught me to appreciate the people around you and sort of understand just how fragile it can be potentially.
100%.
And so I think that's taken. It's been an important life lesson, kind of like you were saying about time as well.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe feeds into it as well. We experience loss, puts into perspective that I could fritter away all this time, or I could set aside some moments to spend with family and friends, just really appreciating each other's company and things like that. I'm still very much like a bit of an introvert. I really appreciate my own company. Just being able to be creative or just be quiet or just be loud. But I'm massively energized by spending time with people I really care about, whose company I enjoy. So I think it's taught me quite a bit about myself.
Awesome.
Where we are in the world.
Yeah, awesome. And I think like you say, that's kind of why I asked you that question, because I feel like it's people hear you perform. They don't know you
right
much about you, but as soon as they hear you or see you perform, and especially that last song you performed, even I was just like, after listening to that, I was just like, I want to know more about you.
Right.
You know?
Thank you.
Because it's
really
just that sort
interesting,
and please, people that are listening or watching on the podcast, let me know in the comments if you feel the same way. But for me, I just think you think, oh my goodness, this person, what have they, what's made them into who they are now?
Yeah.
And I think like hearing that, and once again, I said it so many times there, like the similarities. But I feel like what's the stuff that I've gone through as well, it's definitely made me think differently and give me more sense of perspective about life. Like I go back to a time when I had no kidney problems. Life's a breeze. What I mean? You just never think nothing's going to happen. You sort of think invincible.
Yeah.
And then suddenly I get told, oh yeah, you've got this, your kidneys are depleting. Eventually they're going to fail, and you're on dialysis. Or I start off doing dialysis 8 hours overnight, then 9 hours and 10 hours overnight, and then going on to a different type, and then getting pneumonia and spending time in hospital and stuff like this, and all these things. And people, for me, like, if I could go back, I wouldn't want it to happen. If you could go back, you wouldn't want your dad to have had an accident. Of course you wouldn't.
Yeah.
But things they so shape who we are today, in a massive way.
Yeah.
And like for me now, I don't know if I'd like to say I'm a better person because of all that's happened to me, but I'm just more well-rounded.
Right.
Yeah. I still wish that hadn't happened, of course.
Oh man.
I still wish I didn't have to do dialysis on a daily basis.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's amazing how it shapes you as an individual.
We'd be different buzzes. You'd be a different you. I'd be a different me if not for these moments.
Yeah, for sure.
And they have a power because of that. Sure.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to finish up by asking you a bit about your looping.
Yes.
And the reason why is because I'm sure people listening are going to be interested, but for me, I certainly am as well. You'll probably see there on my desk, I've got my MIDI keyboard.
Yes, mate.
And normally I sync up with Beatbox on my iPad, and I'm creating a few things at the moment.
Nice.
And I'm just interested to know that tips you'd have, tricks, how you go about the loops. Because I haven't got a loop pedal. I haven't got a big setup. I just use the iPad and trigger things on there.
Brilliant.
And
so I started doing it with Boss Duo pedal, Roland Boss Duo pedal called the RC30, sorry. It's the one. It's a little 2-pedal looper. There's a mic input and an instrument input, 2 channels, and I had that for years and years and years. I like to think I did quite a bit with it, but then beginning of 2020, I'd heard about this other one, and it does so much. And it has 5 channels. And it was designed for use as like a tabletop looper for like beatboxers and people, maybe even DJs or sort of things like that. So there's buttons and sort of DJ style faders and things like that. And that's just been an amazing upgrade, I think, to my live performances. Various different effects that I can use to sort of trigger almost like kind of dance, sort of DJ style vinyl scratching and other things like that. That's not to say that like it's all about your equipment. And I think knowing your equipment really well is way better than just having all the gear. Right?
Yeah. All the gear, no idea.
Yes. I remember hearing that when I was quite young and in a band, and very much in the zone of being like, need more equipment. Get more. I'll be better once I've got that thing, and then that thing, and that thing. But it's kind of I think what you were touching on before. It's really, really cool to add things, but it's super powerful to take them all away for brief pauses and add in some new elements, take some other bits away. So I feel like structuring songs or structuring beats or anything, it's all addition and subtraction. It's kind of, that's a new element. Oh, bass is dropped out. Oh, we've got a build-up, but it's sort of an anti-drop or, kind of cool things like that. So little surprises or sort of ear candy or fun things like that.
Yeah, sure.
guess we're almost back to Stevie Wonder production techniques and things like that.
Yeah. But with those things, it's interesting. I don't know about you, but when I'm performing, I don't always, you don't plan it, it just happens. You just feel it.
Yeah.
You know? And you tend to go back to similar sort of things. Like I tend to like, when I'm performing, sometimes I'll do like the and then back in sort of thing.
Nice.
Just to add a bit more of a different dynamic. After you've just been playing like a bit of a groove.
Yes.
And you just cut out and then the chimes or something.
Yes.
And then when it comes back in,
awesome.
you know, there's the impact. So I'm trying to think about a bit more of that, like you said there, when doing the stuff on a MIDI keyboard there. It's not huge. It's just a little.
No, they're great.
Little one. But I'm trying to see if I can incorporate that into more live performances as well.
Nice.
So like when I'm playing like DJ, so I can like trigger different percussion
that
from
would
there.
be so cool.
Because at the moment I just kind of play with this setup here.
Yeah.
But just if I could like, you know, different sort of sounds in there. But
nice.
But no, that's really cool. Okay, well we've got a tradition on the podcast, and the guest before you leaves a question for the next guest.
Ooh.
So we're gonna get your question off camera.
Yeah.
Which we asked the next guest, but the question for you came from Johnny Moody.
Yes.
And it was, what is a song which you can listen to however you're feeling? Sad, happy, no matter how you're feeling, you can listen to it and you can just enjoy it. You can just enjoy it, vibe out to it, and
There's a couple that spring to mind, but there is this one piece of music that just kind of pretty much takes my breath away every time I listen to it. My wife absolutely hates it. It makes her actually a little bit angry.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm not saying I love it for that reason as well, but I'm like, I don't love it because she hates it. But I love that she has like a really visceral response to it, and it just makes me super excited. It's called The Court Jester. It's an instrumental piece of music by this Armenian jazz pianist.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like super into jazz, but he was clearly like a metalhead as a kid as well.
Yeah. And
so it's that melting pot of genres. It's so exciting, it's so vibing, and the rhythm in it is incredible. So it would have to be that.
Okay.
If I put that, if I've got a playlist on shuffle and that comes on and I'm driving, that steering wheel is getting hammered with me playing the drums on the steering wheel. So The Court Jester by T. Grant.
Lovely. Go check it out. Check it out. Yeah, for me, I think I said to Johnny when he asked me the question, I said, maybe Ain't No Sunshine by Bill Withers.
So good.
Just such an easy listening track. Doesn't matter how I'm feeling, I can just enjoy that one.
Nice.
And then, I don't know, but it's funny, Fix You, Coldplay. I think when the drums kick at the end there.
Nice.
I just love that.
Nice.
I think it takes back to playing that song as well and covers bands. So, that groove at the end. It's just
awesome.
And then Protocol Harum, A Whiter Shade of Pale.
Oh, yes.
I don't care how I'm feeling. Like,
I think that's a great show.
That's just, So, but there's so many. There's me asking one. It's so hard to give one, isn't it?
I kind of want to give a second one.
Yeah, do it. Chuck the second one in the mix.
It might have to be. It might have to be something like, because you say Bill Withers, and I start thinking of all the artists of like that caliber and that era of music.
Yeah.
And I heard it recently, and I was just like, this is like a ray of sunshine through a speaker. Sweet's Feeling, Jackie Mills. I'm already smiling.
Yeah.
Second chord, oh god, the smile's getting big, you know? It's like...
Anybody goes into it, and I get that.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah. The melody, everything. It's just pure joy.
Yeah.
That song.
Yeah.
And that's a song, if you're happy, you're happier.
Yeah.
If you're sad,
if you're in a bad place,
happy.
it's gonna lift
it's
you
gonna
up.
lift just like yeah.
So I think it's kind of perfect for that.
That's
as well.
a great show. Yeah. But there's just so much great music out there, isn't it? It's hard to pinpoint just
it is
just one. But but I've absolutely loved having you here. It's been amazing. We haven't even had a chance really to talk about like your different albums and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But we will in the future one. You know, we get you back. We get you back on. I always think with this podcast, it's so hard to cram it all into just one chat. You know what I mean? Because We've got so much we could talk about, but I've absolutely loved it.
Me too, mate. Thank
I
you.
think some people listen to this podcast are maybe upcoming musicians, just getting into it, want to get into the industry. So and I've actually got an upcoming podcast with somebody talking about how they kind of got into music and their journey, and they're actually a magician. But the similarities between music and magic and being a performer.
Nice.
But I'm always interested from the guests that are on here, what advice they might give. To if we could go back to the younger ourselves now, what would we tell ourselves?
Yeah, I think first of all, prepare to be a bit patient with the process.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's quite a key thing, because when you're just starting out, you're full of excitement and full of energy, and I think sometimes the gigs and maybe the audiences aren't always going to match the energy that you're bringing to it, and maybe that's a sad reality of the situation, but it's kind of, you're excited because you're full of energy to perform to a room of people, and they might never have heard you before, so they're not as excited as you, and I definitely felt like in the early years.
Absolutely.
I probably still feel that. And I think the other one is go to stuff, like figure out where the open mic nights are. Go to some gigs just to experience the music, and I feel like some of the best contacts I've made have just been at things. Gigs I've played, gigs I've attended, and if you're supporting, and if people notice that you're supporting the live music scene, then you're automatically a good egg. You're the sort of person that they want to support, and I feel you notice the ecosystem of artists and creatives in your area. You start seeing the same people, and then it's like, oh, who do you know that I know?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So I think going to stuff and
networking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I was trying to avoid the word networking, but
sorry.
No.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it covers so much, doesn't it? It really, really, really does.
Yeah, I suppose. Networking is it's a fancy way of saying just meet people.
I think that's true. Yeah,
really. So there's something to be said for just getting out there and just meeting people and just being around it.
Definitely, because I think that energizes you as well. You might have had a rubbish gig the previous week, and then you go to someone else's gig, or you do a couple of songs at an open mic night, and it goes really well, and you get chatting to people afterwards, and you're like, yeah, this is why I'm doing this. Yeah, kind of thing. So
yeah, no, awesome. And so true what you said about matching the energy of yourself and what the crowd. Yeah, because I felt that. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Even in more recent times, nowadays I don't feel it so much, but I'm now in a place where I feel like you won't be as well. I get that vibe from you when you're playing, where you're just like, you're doing your thing.
Yeah, and that's true. That's true.
Take it or leave it, you're going to get this.
Yes, exactly.
You know what I mean? You like it or not, you're here, I'm performing, this is what you're going to get.
It takes some time to get there, but I think
some time.
If you can just kind of step into that headspace, basically,
the
mic goes live and you're like, right, or, your hands, you're holding the drumsticks or whatever.
Yeah. And it's like, you sometimes feel like who would want to just sit there and watch me play percussion or play the guitar. But people do, and as soon as you get yourself into that headspace of you just kind of can express yourself just that bit more. Yeah. And like you said, I think maybe at a younger age, if you're a young musician watching this and you go to a gig and you don't get the response that you thought you wanted, keep going. Yeah. Keep going with it. Keep going,
absolutely.
And also Johnny made a great point in the last podcast. Don't get into this to make money. Get in it to do what you love. Yeah. And then hopefully you'll feed into a position where you can make some money out of it. But ultimately, just do what you love. Enjoy the process as well. Yeah. But that's awesome. Right, we're going to finish up a performance with yourself to finish it. Okay, cool. I feel like I've had you performing so much today.
I love it, man.
No worries. We're going to finish up with one last performance. But I just want to say thank you so much.
Thank you
for coming
on. Thanks for having me.
It's inspired and just energised me to play more music. I'm probably going to spend the afternoon doing something of the sorts, to be fair.
Brilliant.
But yeah, it's just amazing to hear how you think, and you talk so brilliantly and beautifully about what music means to you and how you kind of structure it and put it out there to the world. So I just think it's amazing. So
Thank you very much.
thank you so much for that. Just tell us a bit about this last track.
Pleasure. What am I going to do? I'm going to do an older track that I've done quite a lot over the years, and then it sits on the shelf for a little while, and then comes back out and yada yada. So yes, this is called, and of course now the song title is falling out of my head. What's it called?
Brilliant.
Yeah, this is called Youthful Masochists.
Oh, okay.
Youthful Masochists. I don't really know where the name came from. It kind of, the words just kind of flowed and just happened, and yeah, it sort of means something probably, but I was so busy writing the song that I didn't really worry too much about what the meaning of the song was. I still don't really know what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
And I still quite like that about it. I feel there's something a little bit precious that I wasn't too worried about how it was going to be interpreted or what.
And no doubt it's now going to have people in different ways.
Yeah.
So that's brilliant. Okay, well, like I say, thanks again.
Nice one, mate. Thank you.
And to play us out, guys, this is Fugitive Orchestra with
Youthful Masochists.
Awesome.
Thank you, mate. Thanks for having us.
You're saying that you really do believe that I have a growing tendency to deceive, and that I'm not the only one, something up my sleeve. You're saying that you really can't allow for people to take offense when you parade around this cash cow. With your eyes facing heavenwards, you make a vow, but it's not one that you intend to keep. Your ruthlessness is wide awake, but your conscience is fast asleep. And can someone please explain what all this is? Why the masochists want to be kissed right on the lips of their youthfulness? Why they're using words that I do detest? You learned them from the wolves that brought you up and brought you here. Well, is there something to which you're trying to allude? Well, the way you disagreed, I must admit that I thought you rude. Yes, it's like so many of your words, often misconstrued. Will you just carry on while I disapprove? With your arms folded and your tongue firmly in your cheek, you say you're only trying to reach your potential, but I see it's so childish and inconsequential. And can someone please explain what all this is? Why the masochists want to be kissed right on the lips of their youthfulness? Why they're using words that I do detest? Could that someone please refrain from using these cliched words? I'm not saying please. You learned them from the wolves that brought you up and brought you here to me, that 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 brought you here to me,